Hi, Sean here, one half of Sean and Kiara. We are the co-creators of Lucy in the Sky, a graphic novel for middle grade readers published by First Second. Our second graphic novel, Rhiannon, will be out in October of 2025. If you like the things we do, please consider supporting us by becoming a paying member of our Patreon site for $4 a month. And if you enjoy videos like this, hit the like and subscribe buttons, as it'll help us build this channel. Thank you, and enjoy the video. Hi, this is Sean, one half of Sean and Kiara, and welcome back to Reading Batman. It's a series I'm doing where I take a look at Batman stories from the Golden Age to the Bronze Age, stories that I find amusing or interesting, or ones that I remember from having read when I was a kid, and reading through them and offering my own little opinions, such as they might be. And this time, we're going to take a look at a story from Batman number 222, and this came out in 1970. And this is a story that I just recently discovered when I was kind of browsing through these copies, or these files of Batman comics that I managed to find on the Internet Archive. There's one that I hadn't read before, and I came upon this cover, and I thought, whoa. So, Batman says, "Here they come. One of them is dead, but which one?" And the title of the story, Robin is holding the album cover, Dead Till Proven Alive. And he says, the clue is on the album cover. And immediately I knew what the story was about. So we see the album cover there. And if you're familiar with the Beatles and the Paul is dead rumor, well, then you know what this is going to be. Here we have a group that is modeled on the Beatles, maybe their Sgt. Pepper period, and walking away from a grave in the background, all carrying their instruments. And the album cover here is clearly modeled after the back cover of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, where Paul has his back to the viewer while the rest of them are facing forward. And if you're familiar with this this rumor, it wasn't really a hoax, kind of a conspiracy rumor, conspiracy theory that happened in the late 60s. The Paul is dead rumor was a rumor that started. Well, it kind of got underway around the time that the Beatles stopped touring, and they entered into their, what was called their studio phase. They began working on the Sgt. Pepper album, and they kind of dropped out of public view for longer than was previously normal for them. And there was a rumor that Paul was ill, and then this rumor sort of changed into Paul might possibly be dead even, and then it just sort of snowballed over the ensuing years, that he had been in a car accident in 1966, and that he had been replaced by a double so as not to upset the fans. It just became more and more ridiculous. And at some point, this rumor began to get popular on American college campuses via an article that was written in a college paper about it, and then promoted on various radio stations in this country. And people began looking for clues. The idea was that the Beatles were trying to tell us that Paul was dead and that he had been replaced. For some reason, they were trying to tell their fans the truth, but they could not tell the truth. They could not just come out in a press conference and say, look, this is what happened. So instead, what they would do is they would sprinkle little um, cryptic clues in their album covers and in their recordings. And this was one of the famous clues here. That Paul has his back turned towards us, which is a sign that he is no longer among the living. I just noticed this here. One of the musicians on the cover has bare feet. That was another one of the clues. On the Abbey Road cover, Paul is the only one with bare feet. It was supposed to be another clue that, for some reason, I don't know why that means he's dead, but anyway, that's what it was. Okay, so let's take a look. Back together again, Batman and Robin, dead till proven alive. So the story is written by Frank Robbins and Art Irv Novick and Dick Giordano. And here we have, our story opens at Hudson University. So this is, as I said, a story from 1970. And at this period in Batman comics, so some big changes had been made. Robin was kind of off on his own. He'd finally gone off to college after being a high school teenager for 40 years or so. He'd gone off to Hudson University. So, Gotham City is kind of a stand-in for New York, and so Hudson, that makes sense. And so here he is in his college dorm, it looks like, with some of his college pals. And they're all gathered around the radio station, and says, it's funny, the DJ patter that we get here from the radio DJ, it's trying its best to have that sort of cool DJ hip kind of lingo, and it just reeks of silliness, especially when we read it now. So we're removed from it by so many years, so many decades, and then you think that, okay, well, this was being written by some white, possibly middle-aged, possibly unhip people in imitation of radio DJs who were themselves probably white, middle-aged dudes trying to talk in this hip lingo. So a time at Hudson University when studying is the last thing on students' minds. Yay, kids, this is Ho Ho Ho, your jolly green DJ at XJL, with the newest poop on ye great Oliver Twist's mystery. So Oliver Twists is the name of the band that is modeled on the Beatles. Dig the seventh groove on our boys' summer nights. Spin at 78 RPM instead of 33. Take it off on tape and play back at 1 7/8 IPS. So this is a reference to one of the clues, song on the Beatles' White Album, Revolution 9, in which the idea is if you played the record at the point where the recording of the man saying number 9, number 9, number 9, if you played that backwards, which you could do back in the day on a record player, and I guess you could do digitally now, even easier, but back then you just stopped the record player from spinning, and then you manually turned the thing backwards, and you would still, the sound would still come through the speaker. You could hear things backwards, and it sounded a lot like he was saying, "Turn me on, dead man," but it was more like, "Turn me on, dead man, turn me on, dead man." So that was one of the clues. So here they're getting their instructions from the DJ, and it's kind of a complicated complicated process that they've got to do. So they've got to play the record at 78, which back then you still had record players that could play at 78, and then you were to tape it, supposedly on a reel-to-reel machine like these guys have here, in which you could adjust the playback speed and play back the speed at 1 1/7 inch per second. And then you would get the message. So they're listening to it. Gleepity bleepity slurp burp. Yeah, that's where Glennon raps. You ain't got it if you ain't bought it. I'd know his voice at any speed. Glennon, the singer in the Oliver Twists. Kind of very similar to Lennon. Even Dick, Robin, Grayson is swept up in the current campus fever as the playback moves at 1 7/8 inch per second. Sure was a ball, Saul. Too bad it's over. Who else could Glenn mean but Saul Cartwright? So we have Saul Cartwright is the person, the member of the Oliver Twists who is supposedly dead, and Saul Cartwright, very similar to Paul McCartney. At last, Dick, the great skeptic, breaks down. Now do you believe that Saul's dead? We interrupt with a late blast. The Twists are coming to Gotham City, maybe in a pink submarine, to prove that Saul is alive and well and living in old London town. Wow, Saul is alive, and if only the Twists could appear here at Hudson U. Dick, your guardian Bruce Wayne is a big wheel in Gotham. Maybe he could swing it as a favor for you. As Dick Grayson, I'd have to play it cool, but as Robin, I'm really intrigued by this mystery. I don't like to influence pedal fellas, but I'll give it a try. Later, at Wayne Foundation, where Bruce Batman Wayne handles his cover enterprises. So this was another change at this time. Bruce is no longer living at Wayne Manor. He has sort of closed it up, and he's moved into Gotham City to be sort of in the thick of things. And he's living in this Wayne Enterprises skyscraper, at the top of which he has his penthouse. And instead of a bat cave, he has kind of a bat underground complex under the parking garage of the building. As a major stockholder in Eden Records, this publicity has been boom business. But as Batman, I don't want to be party to a hoax. As you're reading the newspaper, alive or dead, so the rumor is in the newspapers as well. As Dick relates his classmate's request, I'd love to, Dick, but you know the 4 orphans are an independent bunch. They don't push easily. Could you invite them to be your guests while they're in Gotham? Then give me a crack at persuading them. I'll come down special for the weekend. It'll mean reopening Wayne Manor. No room here in the penthouse for those mad mods. Okay, we'll do. There's an added incentive with the Twists under one roof. As Batman, I should be able to spot whether Saul was a phony. T-Day. Pandemonium reigns at Gotham Airport as the elusive Twists make their first public appearance in over a year. So, again, just like these guys trying to replicate the hip DJ patter, here we see a gang of, we're supposed to be hippie-looking fans, and I always thought that the way hippies were depicted in media in the 70s, the early 70s especially, was very similar to the way that punks and new wavers were depicted in the early 80s, not very accurately. Here they come, orphans, we love you, and Saul's memory. So they've even got a little nickname, the Orphans, kind of like the Beatles. We're called the Fab Four. Stay close to your TV screens, folks. Our zoom lens brings you live a 4x4 close-up of the one and only Saul Cartwright. Hi, folks. Sorry to disappoint my faithful mourners, but as you can plainly see, well parked away from the swirling mob behind a hangar, sure looks like Saul, sounds like him, but is he? Dunno, Dick. Plastic surgery and voice training can do wonders. If he's a stand-in for the rumored dead Saul. So, doesn't look a whole lot like Paul. He's got, whatever you call these kind of mustaches that wrap around to the ears. Although the Beatles at the time, the Sgt. Pepper era, they all had adopted mustaches, so that was the thing. And he's got a kind of a head of curly hair, unlike Paul's, and this Dracula colored cape is interesting. As a protective police cordon leads the harried twists through their ardent fans, which we may find out soon, Dick, Commissioner Gordon has extended my invitation to them. They're all yours now, Bruce. Take 'em away. Thanks, Commissioner Gordon. Wayne Manor will give them the peace and privacy they'll need between public appearances. After running an adoring, screaming gauntlet, they enter the serenity and quiet of staid Wayne Manor. Cool, posh like Buckingham Palace, eh, lads? Glennon, you always were a pushover for posh. Weren't he, Hal? Ho, and you're such a haven for austerity, Benji? Right, Saul? Brr, reminds me of a bloody mausoleum. They're trying to mimic the Beatles and their Liverpudlian way of talking, their dialect, but I don't know. It doesn't really come off that authentic. And we see them here in outfits that are clearly modeled on the Sgt. Pepper, the psychedelic military band tunics, costumes that they wore on that album cover. Funny reaction. These boys could buy Buckingham Palace. Saul talks like he's just risen from the grave. Forgive the put down on your digs, Mr. Wayne, Dick, but this death roll my nutty fans have dreamed up is getting to me. And while you seem the regular sort, you might have doubts too. So let's clear the record right now. When my three partners took off for the Himalayas a year ago to do their thing, it wasn't to go into mourning over my death in a cycle accident in London. So here we have the story. In this story, Saul apparently dies in a motorcycle accident in London while the other three go off to the Himalayas. The Beatles famously went to see the Maharaja Mahesh Yogi in Rishikesh in India. And they took a trip right around this period to study transcendental meditation with him. But in that case, all four of them actually did go. Did they expect me to make solo appearances while the backbone of our group was away? I just dropped out of sight to dream up new arrangements and stuff till they returned. So this reminds me of Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys, and how Brian Wilson hated touring, and at some point he just let the rest of them go touring while he stayed at home and composed, and that material then was meant to go on their famous record that never was, Smile. We get the message, Saul. Nobody will get on your back here. Alfred will show you to your quarters, Dick whispers. He gave me just what I wanted. Come on, Bruce. I'll need your assistance. All right, so Batman and Robin are up to something. Quickly exiting into the secret Batcave elevator. Saul gave you what? Just what are you up to, Dick? Up to discovering the truth. If that chandelier I bugged picked up his voice clearly. In the Batcave, Dick switches on a tape recorder. The ear can be fooled, Bruce, by playing Saul's voice back through the sono analyzer. Produces a sonogram, a voice pattern print as distinctive as a fingerprint. But what comparison do you have? This early recording of the authentic Saul Cartwright's voice. Look, our present guest is a fraud. They're both different. Different, yes, but so is the source. The source? One is a singing voice, the other speaking. They would have unlike patterns. So you've proved nothing, unless you can get Saul's present singing voice. Later at dinner, planning to record our deathless words for posterity, Saul? On my mini recorder? Mr. Wayne, this is my inseparable companion in case of sudden inspiration. Then I sing into it. So you might have noticed that Saul's been carrying around this little portable tape recorder. Then, in the dead of night, Saul got inspired several times during dinner. His tape has just the voice I need on it, a singing one. But in case I should be spotted, better that Robin takes the rap. So it's better that they find Robin mysteriously sneaking into Wayne Manor. Okay. He didn't even stir. Now with luck, I can copy this off and replace it with Saul being any the wiser. Suddenly, his head reeling, Robin clutches desperately behind him at his unseen assailant and drags him down with him as he feebly fights back. Lego, blast you. Krang. Thump, thump, thump down the step. Boy, Robin is sort of surprising that he could be beaten so easily. Moments later, that commotion out here, what caused Robin? As Bruce lifts the limp form, still breathing, got to get him out of sight before... Hey, who's tripping the light fantastic out there? You saw? Not me, Glennon. I'm no sleepwalker. Maybe Hal? Benji? Close, but they didn't spot us. This needs the privacy of the Batcave. Seconds later. What happened, Robin? Tried to get Saul's recorder, then someone clobbered me from behind. I lost. Must have been Saul. Woke up and followed me. But why his desperate interest to guard that recorder unless he's trying to hide his voice? That could prove he's not Saul. The next evening, as they dressed for dinner, it's hard to imagine Paul McCartney sort of beating up Robin the Boy Wonder, though. I just got to throw that in there. They all came down to breakfast looking innocent as lambs, and Saul still had his recorder. They must be in cahoots, Dick. But there's another way to get his singing voice, as you'll soon see. After a curiously terse dinner, everyone remained seated. I have a surprise. Alfred, would you turn out the lights, please? Moments later, it's Alfred's birthday. Oh, Master Bruce, you shouldn't have. What a cutie. It's an interesting thing to call him. Bruce must have every place setting bugged. And now, how can Saul refuse? And what better present than to be serenaded by the Twists, Alfred? Happy birthday, everybody. Happy birthday. This is back in the day when you could not sing the happy birthday song because it was it was still under copyright. For a brief moment, Sal hesitates, and then, as at an unseen signal, we've been separated so long, gang. Like, yeah, it's time. We sang together. Happy birthday, dear Alfred. Happy birthday to you. And you could just imagine them harmonizing like the Beatles would. And look at their faces here. They kind of resemble the other Beatles. I can see John here in the glasses, and I can see George, or maybe it's just the orange because he had the orange thing on the uniform on the Sgt. Pepper cover. That kind of looks like George's hair and mustache from there. And that looks like Ringo, Doesn't look like Paul, though. Later. Birthday to you. Meaningless without Saul soloing. And the sonogram analyzer can't separate their voices. What now, Batman? I'm trying another tack, bugging their outside calls and taping them. Gotham Recording, Saul Cartwright of the Oliver Twists here. Could we have the use of your studio for some test taping tonight? Could you ever? Like, man, wow, the Twists in my studio. So apparently even the studio owners like to speak in this hip lingo. Oh, but Saul, all my engineers have left. I was just closing. Don't need 'em, friend. We do our own. Just leave the key under the entrance. Must be a typo. Just leave the key under the entrance mat. We'll make it worth your while. Just the break we needed, Robin. Come on. We're setting up a private recording date to get a tape of Saul singing. A little glimpse of the Batmobile back here, and it's the one they're drawing at this point is modeled after the 1960s TV show Batmobile, the famous Adam West Batmobile. You can see from the kind of the bubble windshields. Reactivating the Batmobile, the dynamic duo race against an unknown deadline, then parking out of sight. Under the entrance mat, he said. Simpler than picking our way in, Batman. We open up, slip the key back under the mat, and relock from the inside. They'll never guess we're hiding here. Good plan, Robin, except what? Someone else got the idea first. Bam, bam, bam. Apparently they're being shot at from inside the studio. You gotta have some action in a Batman comic, even if it is about the Beatles. It's kind of a confusing panel at first sight, but we seem to have the control room part of the recording studio up here with a monitor, and then the Batman's shadow on the wall, and the figures are all arranged in such a weird, chaotic way, and this is, reinforced by all these lines going in different directions. The boom, the mic stand, and the cables, and what looks like motion lines, I guess, from Batman and Robin, and then Batman's weird posture with his backwards hand flicking on the light switch. It's just an incredibly confusing panel. And now, while they're still blinded by their own gun flashes, we can cast further light on the situation. I dig. Say no more, Batman. We take him apart. So Batman apparently knows exactly where the light switch is. And I didn't know you could be blinded by shooting a gun in the dark. So, crash, kapow. He goes right through the control room window. Ka-chung. They call this a mic boom. Those are stupid puns that Batman and Robin are famous for while they're fighting. The audition is over, friend. Let's make this in stereo. I've balanced the left channel, now for the right. So you can know a little bit of recording talk here to understand this. Looks like Saul had his own surprise party waiting for us. But how did you groove it was a trap, Batman? How did you groove it was a trap? This key was the key. Don't put me on, Batman. The naked eye can't spot fingerprints, and those sharp thugs are wearing gloves, so how? True, but when the studio owner left locking the door like this, he automatically had to put the key down like this, with grooved end toward the door. But when we found it, it was reversed, indicating it was replaced from the inside. So you knew someone got there before us. It's a kind of a sort of a slim deduction, but okay. The twists have the perfect alibi. They were still home when we left. So Saul must have hired those local killers. But they're not the type who talk. Besides, I want it from the horse's mouth. They'll keep till we send the police. I've already got the evidence I need on Saul. You gotta be kidding, Batman. We don't even have the voice recording we came for. Speeding back to the Batcave. After we'd left here, I realized we didn't need a singing voice anymore, but I had to follow Saul's bait through to be sure. You forget we now have the talking phone bugging tape, and the first talking tape from the chandelier bug. We compare them, and prove that Saul hired the... What? They're different. Then Saul Cartwright didn't make the second call, the trap bait one. And maybe someone else attacked me to get the mini recorder back, but who? Who? That's what we're going to find out right now, with a nose-to-nose confrontation up above. A scene of apparently untroubled at-home bliss greets them. Chuckle. Their late show sure beats the BBC, eh, blokes? Saul Cartwright, if that's your real name. It is my name, Batman. Get off my back, both of you. I've had more of this than I'm going to take. You want to know the real story? I'll tell you. No, you won't, Saul. Not after the great pains I've taken to keep 'em from finding out. They should have been dead by now. But since my trap didn't work, this will. Aha. So our John Lennon pulls a gun on Batman. But Saul whacks it out of his hand with his tape recorder. I like that move. Never thought you'd freak out like this, Chumley. But I won't go along with it. Ka-chang. Ouch. Something tells me I owe you this for last night. What did you just call Glennon, Saul? Chumley, his real name. Just like this is really Pritchard and Gilby. I'm not the phony. They are. What? You heard me right. These lads are the frauds, the put-ons. Because Glennon, Sub, Benji, Hal, my good old buddies, they're dead. Killed last year in a crash of a private jet that was taking them to groove with the mysteries of the East. They're lying buried somewhere in the trackless snows of the Himalayas. I thought I could keep them alive to their devoted fans the world over by recruiting 3 unknown lookalikes to stand in for them. Some minor plastic surgery and almost a year of coaching, and they were good, real good. But the big trick was to prevent the wild rumors of their death springing up and upsetting the apple cart. So I dreamed up my death as a decoy to focus all curiosity on me. That way, who would even begin to suspect that anything had happened to my 3 teammates? And then they flew back out of their incommunicado junket in a duplicate plane, right back into the hearts of their devotees. I only tried to preserve their image, but I hadn't figured on the one weak link, Chumley's greed, which made him go to any length to protect our fraudulent group and the fastest income he's ever seen in his whole miserable life. I believe now that you set up this cockeyed scheme with the noblest of motives, Saul, but like all dishonest put-ons, it backfired. You realize now that the world has to learn the true story, Saul, but if you face up to it and level with them, your fans will understand, as we do. Besides, if these boys are as real good as you say they are, you may have a new group and a new sound. And so, like the legendary bird, the phoenix, a new smash trio arises from the ashes of the old, a week later at Hudson U. Yay, Saul! Yay, Phoenix! We love you. You didn't deliver the goods we requested, Dick, but you sure came up with the biggest twist of the century. And just so you don't come up with the biggest head, Grayson, just remember, you owe it all to the Batman and Robin. The end. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Reading Batman.